Hey everybody, Chaz Patrick here with the Patrick Connection, and as you know, I hope you're staying warm or cool or comfortable wherever you are. As you know, with this vodcast, the whole purpose is sharing the story of Hoosier veterans, whether they are transplants or boomerangs, as we call them, coming back home to Indiana. So I have a really special guest. This guy is awesome. I'll let you'll figure out the branch affiliation a little bit, but he is doing some really fantastic things in the northeast part of the state. And he also serves as one of our board members for INvets. So really a great guy, servant leader. And I am going to go ahead and welcome him to the stage. Nick Darrah, who is the Vice President of Partnerships and Government Relations. He is here today. He's also a fellow Marine Corps brother. Nick, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Chaz. Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. How's it going up there in Fort Wayne?
We got a lot going on.
I
A lot of work to
understand,
do,
man.
but a lot of momentum and a lot of really good things happening.
That's good. Progression is always a great thing, right?
For sure.
All right, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So let's really talk about military service. Like, what's your background? You know, what did you do? How did you find out? You know, about being in the military. I'll let you disclose the branch. I know I did a little bit, but
yeah,
tell us your story about how that all occurred.
Yeah. So the way I like to talk about it, every little boy wants to be GI Joe, or at least when I was a kid, and be the good guy with the big gun fighting the bad guy and protecting people. And I just never outgrew that. So I knew I wanted to be a Marine. I landed on the Marine Corps early. I wanted to be a Marine since I was probably about 12 years old. And my mom couldn't talk me out of it. Nobody could talk me out of it. I was joining the Marine Corps as soon as I could. 2 days after I turned 18, walked into the recruiter's office, said, I want to be a Marine, I want to be a grunt, and I want to go to boot camp as soon as possible. And he said, I can help you with that. So we, a couple months after graduating high school, I shipped off to boot camp. That was in 2004. So went to boot camp in Camp Pendleton, MCRD San Diego, and graduated in August. Went to boot camp in August, graduated in November, and School of Infantry, hit the fleet. I was in 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, 2-4 out of Camp Pendleton, and I was a 03. My first deployment was to Okinawa, Japan in 05. So that was honestly at the time it was a little frustrating for us. It was 2005. The whole Marine Corps was at war in either Iraq or Afghanistan, and we got sent to Okinawa on the 31st MEU to do jungle warfare training and just be a force in readiness waiting for something to happen if it happened out in the Pacific. It ended up being a really great experience though, and helped our unit obviously train and get better with the craft, but also bond and really be ready for what came next, which was my second deployment was the 15th MEU out of San Diego, and we ended up in Iraq. We bounced around the Pacific for a little bit, hit a couple of different level ports, but ended up in Iraq in 2006 as part of the surge campaign. We were one of the first units of the surge, went to the Haditha Triad region, and went to go support a unit that was getting chewed up pretty bad out there. 2-3 was taking a lot of casualties. They were stretched pretty thin, and so they sent us in, and we cleared through 3 cities and outlying areas, and we did our job so well that they said we could keep doing it for longer. So we got extended, and they put us back in Barwana, which is a small town in that area. And we did SASO ops, security stability operations for a few more months there before heading back home, and eventually back to California. And then had the decision, making time came up. Do I stay in? Do I get out? And as much as I love the Marine Corps and the work and job that I did and the guys that I served with, it was my time to exit, and that's what I did. So I got out in 2008, came back here.
Okay, and what was that? What was the I heard 03. What was that MOS?
I was a 0311 infantry rifleman.
Okay. To say every Marine's a rifleman, right?
Not everybody gets the designator. Yeah.
Yep. Coming from a supply guy. All right. So that being said, that's awesome, and we appreciate you telling the story. I mean, it's definitely once a Marine, always a Marine. Obviously,
Absolutely.
the things we learn as Marines, carries us across a lifetime. And that being said, like having those, so you did 2 Mews then.
Yep. Yeah, I got 6 months at sea. I'm a golden shellback. Yeah, so I've spent a lot of time on ship.
Nice, nice. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that military side of you. So, with your background in the Marine Corps and, having that transition, into the civilian sector, what's some things that the military kind of helped you uh, accomplish based on who you are
Yeah.
today?
I think one of the biggest things that I took away, and I didn't really realize it at the time, but every step you take in the Marine Corps, at least, and I'm sure it's across all of the branches similarly, you're faced with an obstacle that the previous you thought was insurmountable, right? So you go to boot camp this first time that you really, at least with me, that was ever away from home for an extended period of time, that I was ever away from my family. You're in this situation where you're constantly faced with these physical and mental and emotional, even spiritual challenges over and over again, and then you overcome them and you get stronger and you get better. And so you do that enough times throughout, your early training with boot camp and School of Infantry, and then, into the fleet. And it gets to a point where you don't think that that's crazy anymore. It's just, that's the next obstacle to overcome. So I think at least I developed, in a lot of the Marines I served with, and I've heard that from a lot of other vets, is you just develop this, okay, what's next? And a lot of people, young people in particular, that 22-year-old college graduate doesn't necessarily have that confidence that a 22-year-old former service member does. So that's one of the biggest kind of qualities I took away was, there was nothing that was impossible, nothing that I couldn't do. There was no reason to not pursue something that I thought I wanted or was going to, try to achieve. I think that was something that was really instilled in me over that iterative kind of building process that they do in the Marine Corps, by saying, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
So that was kind of one of the biggest takeaways. And even when obstacles get, if things come up and you hit roadblocks, because you're going to hit roadblocks and stumble sometimes, you can overcome that, and you can lean back on the peers that you have, and the support and the mentorship and all of those things that, you have to grow up really, really fast in the military. In the Marine Corps, you go from some punk 18-year-old kid to United States Marine in 13 weeks. And, you go from dumb boot to a salty, NCO in a matter of a couple of years. And that progression is so fast in the military that, it really helps you as you get out, being able to, as we say, improvise, adapt, and overcome anything that comes your way.
That is so true. Simplify. So I got to
Yeah.
ask this as one Marine to another. Do you miss the gas chamber? Because I know there are times when I miss the gas. Like that seasonal stuff. I got to ask.
It's funny, the gas chamber. Were you ever OC sprayed?
No, have I?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. See, gas chambers, nothing compared to spray. Like that was, we got OC sprayed in Okinawa because we were I forget what the designation was, but it was basically the riot control company. We had to get trained in that, right? And so in order to use OC spray, you have to get sprayed with it. So the first time I did it, it was just like, oh, well, I've done the gas chamber. Gas chamber's not that bad. I can get through it. I was all gung ho, get up there first. And it was just awful, because then you got to go through, you got to like do all of these McMap moves and like subdue a subject. And like, it's awful, and it doesn't go away. And it just lasts for hours and hours, and it's reactivated by water, but you still got to wash it off. And it's just awful. But you're only supposed to have to do it the one time once you get certified. Well, when we got back to Camp Pendleton, someone somewhere lost our certifications for that. So when I was in Camp Guard towards the end of my I had to requal on the OC spray, And like that time was so much worse because I knew how bad it was. The first time I was ignorant to how bad it was, so I just jumped up there and did it. The second time I was just like in my head the whole time, like, oh, this is gonna be awful. And it was. It was just terrible. But yeah. Gas chamber, anytime someone brings the gas chamber, like, yeah, gas chamber is nothing. OC spray sucks.
So note to myself, never get sprayed with OC
Yeah,
spray.
yeah, don't get sprayed. Just walk away.
All right, good tip. Taking consideration, your journey, into the civilian sector, and obviously with your unique perspective with INvets as being a board member, what lessons learned could you provide to somebody transitioning out today?
One of the things that I struggled with, and I think a lot of people do, is in the military, there is linear progression, meaning like you start here as a recruit, you go to boot camp, and then there's steps and there's a line, and you know what you have to do in order to achieve that next level, right? That next whatever it is that you're trying to do. There's a roadmap. There's a hierarchy. There's a process. In the civilian world, that doesn't exist. You can start here and end up here, down here, and back to where you ever get to where you want to be. And so that can be really discouraging to not really know what the roadmap is. So just kind of being aware of that and not being too discouraged by that, I think is something to go into that civilian world with. But then also just have the confidence, like I said, carry that confidence over of I can do anything, I can overcome these obstacles, I can learn this new thing. Whether it's going to school or going into a career field, finding other vets. I think Marines in particular, we find each other really well. We're magnets for each other, but there's not a lot of Marines out here. There's a ton of airmen in Fort Wayne and North Carolina, and there's a lot of, we have a National Guard unit here, and then we have a Army National Guard infantry battalion. So like there's a lot of people in this community from those areas, and then you get your general vets, your former active duty people like myself that you connect with. But find those people and find those, you will gravitate towards each other, but that brotherhood, that connection, that fraternity that you have with your brothers and sisters who served, who picked up the flag and carried it forward, no matter what branch they were in, that's a great resource to lean on and network to build. And kind of a trump card to play sometimes. It's people want to know, people do genuinely appreciate military service, at least around here and in this community. And they genuinely want to, be appreciative of that and learn about that and hear about that. And so, don't be afraid. Don't be entitled. Don't be entitled, but don't be afraid to be proud of who you are and what you've done. And like kind of again, that don't be discouraged by the windy road that success is going to take. I'll reiterate, don't be entitled. There's a lot of people who think that they're owed something. We're an all volunteer force and have been for a really long time. If you chose to join the military, that is your choice. It is an honorable choice. You should be proud of that, what you've done, but nobody owes you anything after that. You still have to earn what you're going to get. And so that's, that's one of those things where you run into some folks who think that the world is owed to them because they served 4 years or 20 years or whatever the case is. But that was your choice, and that was your honor to do that and your privilege to do that. And you should be proud of it and you should learn from it. But, don't lord it over people or expect, hand because of it. So those are some of the things that I think that a lot of people struggle with, at least that I have experienced in my time, is those transitions, is that kind of culture shock of getting back into the civilian community, of losing that peer community. You lived and played and were constantly around your best friends all the time, people who literally would lay down their life for you, and then you get out and sometimes you don't have that that network left, and you have to reestablish it or rebuild it, or kind of earn new networks. So yeah, don't get too discouraged by that. Leverage the knowledge and resources and experiences that you had in your military service, and just keep pushing forward.
Those are some great tips. I was going to add a kind of piggyback. For those of you who are wearing a uniform right now and are on active duty, or actually reserves too, or National Guard, did you know that LinkedIn Premium is free for you? LinkedIn Premium is
Nice.
free, and it's still for veterans too. Actually, and they added military spouses too to that.
Nice.
So that being said, because I know in TAPS they talk about LinkedIn, but use LinkedIn for your networking strategy. Like Nick mentioned, if you know you're going back to a certain area. So I'm gonna use a local bigger city. I'm Evansville. You can go to Evansville, look at the Evansville market, and filter by branch of service, and be able to find other people that have the similar background as you do. Or if you want to expand it, you want to look branch specific, you'll start getting tapped into people that have served and that you can connect with and help with your transition journey. So that when he's talking about networking, those are one of the aspects you can use as far as your transition journey for sure. And networking, that's one of the things that we always talk about is not what you know, is who you know.
Yeah, building relationships is incredibly important in anything you do, whether it's business or school or anything like that. I mean, particularly in the business world, and in my experience, like there's 1,000 companies or people who can provide whatever it is that you're providing, whether you're an accountant or a banker or a lawyer or a doctor, or whatever the case is, whatever it is that you do, a salesperson. There's that baseline of competency that you need to have, or service that you need to provide, but there's an amazing number of competitors out there. People do business with people they know, and people they like, and people they trust, and people they respect. And so, getting out there and meeting people, being giving without expectation of return,
yes,
is important. Being authentic and just being like, okay, I care about this thing, not having an angle. You're going to get those returns later when people reach out to you because they know you, they trust you, and it takes time. But using LinkedIn, using those resources, using resources like INvets, or the Marine Corps League, or the VFW, or legacy veteran organizations can be helpful. And up here in Northeast Indiana, we have an organization called the Northeast Indiana Base Community Council. So we work to connect civilians and military communities together so we can be supportive of our vets and our military members here. And there are a lot of people who are out there who want to help and genuinely want to show their appreciation for your service, and also who understand the value of military service, of military experience. Particularly employers who know that that's somebody who can learn, that's somebody who can be taught, who can coach, who can lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way in the right given situation. So there are people out there. There are a lot of people in our community and throughout the state who are, eagerly looking forward to connecting with military members or separated, veterans to help them, achieve their own goals. So be on the lookout for that type of thing.
Definitely some great tips for sure. And I was going to say, did you ever take leave? Did you take a lot of leave when you were in?
Not a ton. I mean, when we had leave blocks, I would. So basically, pre-deployment and post-deployment is when we had that opportunity.
Okay. I was going to say, so I didn't deploy, but I had a lot of leave because I rarely took leave. One of the things I really wish, it's funny, I saw a lieutenant at Fort Leonard Wood, Marine Corps lieutenant. And I said, if I were to go talk to myself back then, anything I'm interested in professionally, whether it be project manager associations or whatever, like going to trade-based conferences. Because in that way, you're able to connect with professionals, on the civilian side, and you actually know kind of what verbiage or what's the lingo and all that stuff, and that can help you, one, sharpen your tools, right? Especially if you're doing like something similar like that in the military, but also start getting you connected with people once you get out.
Mm-hmm. That's a great, that'd be a great, operational plan particularly as you're getting out, as you're looking to get out. And I'm sure, you know more about SkillBridge than I do, but,
actually,
SkillBridge is our opportunity.
I'll say, actually, when I got out, they had just started it.
Okay. Yeah. But I mean, those could be opportunities, but it's something that, I'm sure it kind of translates to soon to be separating veterans. But when I was in college, that was one thing that one of our, I forget if it was in undergrad or grad school, but one of my professors was talking about, use that golden ticket of reaching out to people on LinkedIn and saying, I'm a college student. I'm just interested in how you got to where you are. Because you'd be surprised at how many people are willing to just, hop on a call now, or if you're in that community, grab a coffee or whatever, and just say, I want to pick your brain on how you got to this position. So someday, whenever I grow up, kind of, I would like to do what you do, or I'm interested in learning more about your industry. People love talking about themselves.
Yes.
And so if you have the opportunity to ask somebody, and you're not asking them for a job, you're not filling out an application and clicking on a link or asking anything of them other than just saying, hey, I'm interested in what you do. And I'm looking towards the next, step in my career, in my life. Would you mind, a brief phone call, or can I buy you a cup of coffee? You would be shocked at how many senior level, executive level, CEO level people who go, yeah, sure, depending on their schedule. So definitely use the tools that you've got, use the networks that you can build, and don't be afraid to ask. It's like asking a girl out. Like, what's the worst that can happen? You can say no, right? What's the best thing that can happen? You can get married someday. So it's just, don't be afraid to swing the bat.
There's strength in vulnerability, for sure. Awesome. So, Nick, what are some things that we should close out with?
Yeah, well, so I'll just kind of talk about my journey a little bit, I guess, and how I got to NEI here, and opportunities that I've had here in Northeast Indiana. So like I kind of mentioned, I got out in 2008. I came home. I'm from Fort Wayne, Fort Wayne is the second largest city in the state, up here in Northeast Indiana, and born and raised here. Couldn't wait to leave. Honestly, I think that's a lot of young people in general just want to get out of their hometown, but I couldn't wait to leave when I was younger, and I had no plans on coming back for the long term. I got out and came home and had kind of a soft landing pad and a good support system here. So that's why I first came home. But I was fortunate enough to get out at a time kind of right at the beginning of this renaissance of this city and of this community. And over the time of the 4 years I was in college, it really started to kind of grow again. I had planned on going into law enforcement. That's where a lot of people get out of the military. They kind of naturally gravitate towards that. And I did too. At first, it was one of those things where that's where I thought my skills, the only place my skills from being an infantryman would have been, transferable, was the kind of thought process I had there. And nothing against law enforcement. It's an honorable and noble profession, and we need good people to be in that. But going through the application process for the DEA and the FBI, there was federal hiring freeze kind of in the middle of that. And it was one of those where I had kind of kept progressing in my life. I had gotten married. We had our first kid. I had finished school. And it was one of those things where, why was I chasing that? Why was I going after the law enforcement angle? And again, it was kind of that idea, well, I can kick in doors and fight bad guys overseas, or I can kick in doors and fight bad guys here. there's no shortage of bad guys, and I don't have to deploy all the time if I do that. So, but it wasn't just that idea of picking fights with bad guys. It was, why would I want to do that? It was mission. It was purpose. It was being the good guy, having an impact on other people, having a positive impact on other people. And that's what I kind of realized. I wasn't chasing law enforcement. I was chasing impact. I was chasing mission. I was chasing purpose. And so I had the opportunity to I started working in banking early on, and helping people overcome obstacles, whether it was personal finances or small business. Really enjoyed that piece of it. Kind of gravitated towards economic development, which is what I do now. The idea of helping a community overcome those obstacles and provide economic opportunities for the friends and neighbors that I have in this region and in this community. There weren't too many jobs in that space, and so I knew I was going to have to make myself stand out. So I went back to school, got an MBA, something that at first I didn't think I could do. Kind of, again, one of those obstacles that you have to overcome. And that helped make me a little bit more marketable. And through networking and through relationships, I have one of the people that one of my clients is a banker, is the CFO of the organization I work for now. And I did everything for her when she was starting her business. And so she recommended me for this job when it came up, and I've been able to kind of grow and advance here. But our job here at NEI, the Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership, is to bring new businesses to Northeast Indiana, to increase wealth and prosperity and economic opportunities for this community by attracting new jobs and new capital here. And in order to do that, we have to have a product worth selling. We have to have a community that is worth living in and worth moving to, or worth growing your business in. And so the team I work on works to kind of develop assets and policies to help strengthen that here. And talent pipelines are a huge piece of that. As I kind of mentioned already, are a tremendous talent source that companies and leaders actively look to recruit from. So as INvets was getting it kind of established a number of years ago, we were early on trying to do that ourselves regionally, and then just ended up partnering with INvets on a lot of this stuff. But really providing that pipeline of both the talent from the folks separating from the military, but also kind of on the other side, having great employer partners and building great communities that those highly skilled and valuable veterans would want to live in, who would want to come to and stay in. So that I've been fortunate, again, just kind of by having a great support network here, a support structure with my family, having opportunities here to connect with people, and grow professionally and personally, and then being able to leverage all of that to the position I'm in now, and being able to be professionally successful while scratching that itch of mission and purpose that I've always been chasing from when I was that little kid wanting to be G.I. Joe, and then up until now. So just because you don't know exactly what you want to do right now, I still don't technically know what I want to be when I grow up. It's one of those things. I know what I want to. I know what kinds of outcomes I want to have. I know, again, being positively impactful and having a mission and a team that's worth kind of working with towards that mission. Those are the types of things I like, and that I'm pursuing. But it's not necessarily, I want to be the CEO of this organization, or I want to make X amount of dollars, and have this salary status, or whatever the case is. So that's what I would try to kind of close out with is just given my personal experience. Everybody's experience is unique, but we share some of those key characteristics of those of us who were willing to pick up the flag and carry it forward, who were willing to actually sign on the dotted line, not the "I almost joined," or a drill instructor talked to me that way type of people. We did it. we said that we would, and we carried that legacy forward, and now we're able to leverage that, and we have that bond and that experience, and that ability to continue to do more. And that's the other thing, kind of going back to one of the things I said earlier about not being uh, entitled, is just because you served doesn't mean you're done. Like, you can still serve, you should still serve in your community and your family and your work environment, whatever the case is. Vets we don't have a monopoly on patriotism. There are lots of people who aren't vets who are great patriots and love this country. We don't have a monopoly on service, and that's not the only way to serve. It's a great way to serve, and I'm very proud of my service, but the work's not done. Like, this country is a country worth serving, but it's up to us to make sure that it stays that way. So whether that's through community service, whether that's through public service, whether that's by making millions of dollars and donating it, or whatever the case is, there's a million ways to serve, and the job's not done. So, use that experience, be proud of that experience. Don't worry about obstacles that come your way. You can overcome them, and continue to push forward and chase that mission and that purpose, or whatever it is that drives you, and successful.
Fantastic. Those are definitely some great tips and knowledge as far as how to make that work for you. While we're talking about NEI, I'm actually on their website. This is awesome. Like, got some good stuff going on. They got a podcast that's awesome. Talks about all the different industries.
Yeah.
They even got their social
Yeah, so
media.
we want this to be a front door to the world for Northeast Indiana, and we have a life and a ton of opportunities to be successful. And a big part of what we do is telling that story. And so you see the banner that's kind of scrolling there about pioneering. Our tagline is "Pioneer starts here." We have market leading, innovative pioneers who have started businesses, who have created things, who are thriving here in Northeast Indiana, and it's a place that you can too. So whether you're from Indiana and you're coming home and you're looking for a community to join, or you're from some other corner of the country or the world, we have opportunities here, and we want you to come explore this community and join us as we continue to be one of the fastest growing cities in the Midwest, and just help us continue to pioneer into the next decade.
Awesome. Well, yeah, check out the website. We got some great stuff going on here. All the developments and stuff, and this is awesome. So check them out. Check out the website. Well, Nick, last question is, why Indiana?
Yeah. For me, it's home. Like I said, I came back home. I had no intention of staying here. We were going to go somewhere else, bigger metro area, but we had opportunities here that we just wouldn't have had. And some of it was probably timing, but the growth and the momentum and the opportunities and the quality of life and the ability to live here. I mean, the median home price in Fort Wayne is something like $240,000, and that'll get you a nice home. That'll get you a one-bedroom shack in some other parts of this country. So we're close to everything. We have a lot in our own backyard, but if you want to go to Chicago or Detroit or Indy, or hop on a plane out of Fort Wayne International and go anywhere in the world, you can do that, and you can have to do that here. Relationships we've touched on, we've really harped on, but like the access that I have had to senior leaders in this community is tremendous. And so again, it's people who are genuinely willing to help out others and want to make this place better. We have an organization here in Northeast Indiana called YLNI, Young Leaders of Northeast Indiana. They are a highly sought after group of people for business leaders and executives, because those leaders know that next generation of people that next generation of leaders are in their 20s and 30s now. And so they want to tap into that. I'm a Midwest kid, so I like four seasons. San Diego is beautiful, and it's really nice when you have summer that transitions to spring for a little bit, that transitions back to summer. But it does get, I like the transition of the seasons here to fall and winter. Winter can get a little tough sometimes, but you get back to spring and to summer. So, there's a lot of reasons why Indiana. I mean, we're in the middle of millions. We're right in the middle of everything. You have all of these assets and amenities, and quality of life, and great schools, and you can afford to live here, and you can afford to build wealth, and and own a home, and take care of your kids, and great school systems, and have fun while you're doing it. So there's a million reasons why, but you'd have to identify your own, what it is that you're trying to accomplish. But whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, you can do it in Indiana, and I'll even say you can do it here in Northeast Indiana.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for putting all those great points, and man, you are definitely a wealth of knowledge and inspiration, man. So you keep it up.
Appreciate it. You too, Chaz.
Awesome. Well, most than anything, thank you for your service to our country, your service to our community, and more so your service to our state. Definitely, I think about you. You're a servant leader. You definitely got some influence. I see you around different parts of the state. So keep up the great work.
Appreciate it. And, I like to, sometimes the thank you for your service can be hard to receive. It's one of those where you don't always know what to say afterwards. But I heard this Salt Dog Korea vet one time on the radio said, anytime somebody says thank you for your service, I say it's a country worth serving. And so I think that's really true, and it is to have done so, and but the job's not done. We need to continue to continue our service, and appreciate what you guys are doing, Chaz, and what INvets does. It's such a unique organization that as far as I know, no other state has an organization specifically designated to just that, to bringing talent and helping veterans transition into high quality communities and opportunities like Indiana does. Something over 500 vets and family members were placed in Indiana last year. You guys would do 300 plus base visits a year. You're hitting the ground, you're pounding it out, and making the state better, but at the same time also helping those vets who are in that transition period, who don't know, that could be a scary thing. And to have that support network, and to have that, the way you carry it out, I'm going to throw it right back to you and say thank you for your service. Semper Fi and hoorah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to say hi, see you later to the crowd, we appreciate you. You want to say what's up? Check out Nick on LinkedIn. He's on there. Very active guy, fellow Marine Corps brother. And Nick, I'll be seeing you soon, sir.
All right. Hey, Ron.
So there you have it. Nick Darrah, all around great guy, Marine Corps brother, part of the Northeast Indiana, Regional Economic Forum. Check them out. Check out all the great things he has going on. He is definitely an awesome Marine Corps brother, and so happy to have him on the show. So until next time, be well, be safe. Thank you for joining me today as the host of the Patrick Connection, and see you soon.
A thriving job market and low cost of living, plus a wide range of veteran benefits, make Indiana the perfect place for veterans of the United States military to call home. INvets can help you find that home. We're an organization started by veterans to help former service members transition to civilian life in our state. INvets can help you find the community with the career opportunities, housing, schools, and amenities that fit your lifestyle. To learn more about INvets, visit us at invets.org today.